My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
Welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. On January 20th, President-elect Donald Trump will be sworn back into office. So what will the inauguration look like, and how does it compare to others throughout history? Well, joining us now to discuss all of this is Craig Shirley, a renowned presidential historian and acclaimed Reagan and Trump biographer. Craig, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
You too. You too. What can we expect at Trump's second inauguration?
Well, I think a lot of things. First of all, is that every January 20th, every 4 years, we swear in a new president. We have since 1932 when it was changed. It was earlier, from the time of George Washington up until Franklin Roosevelt. Inaugurations were in March. It was moved back by the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, reset it for January 20th. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that we had such an economic crisis in America. They wanted to get FDR and his administration going as soon as possible. They didn't want to squander those 2 months just waiting around while the Great Depression got any worse. But what we should expect on January 20th? A lot of security, a lot of crowds, a lot of barriers, a lot of fun, a lot of protests. And, the Bidens are leaving town, being basically run out of town as in my mind, the worst president in American history, because he's not only a failure as a president, but he's also corrupt. Unlike Carter was a failure as a president, but he was an honest man. Whereas Joe Biden has been basically head of the Biden crime family for years. So in my mind, this qualifies him as the worst, even worse than Lyndon Johnson, even worse than Richard Nixon, even worse than Millard Fillmore or Franklin Pierce. It qualifies him. He will go down in history as the worst president in American history. So we'll have that, to discuss, when he leaves on January 20th. But also, the one final thing is that it's going to be a battle of cultures, and that's what this election was about. What people don't understand is that this election wasn't about Republicans versus Democrats or liberals versus conservatives. It was a battle of us versus them, and them meaning the elite, the pseudo-intellectual elite culture, that the ruling class in America that we so resent. The people who run the big universities. The people we see evidence right now in California, the morons who brought about all those fires and all those deaths because of their left-wing politics, is that the common sense people are rising up against that, and it's going to manifest itself in a fight in Washington, which is the headquarters for the elites in America, New York and Los Angeles also, but primarily Washington, versus people who support Donald Trump and people who want common sense reform.
That's an enormous task, don't you think? I mean, he's got DOGE, Craig Shirley, which is, of course, the Department of Government Efficiency with Vivek and Elon Musk. But that is going to be a major house cleaning. Is it possible?
I hope so. Let me answer. I say I hope so. He's got the House. He's got the Senate. He's got the popular will. He's got the really important thing, Rita, is he's got the support of the American people. And as Abraham Lincoln observed and Ronald Reagan observed, is that You can't get anything done in America. You can't get anything done in Washington without the support of the American people. And Trump has that support, but he has to move fast. And I noticed is that they're already starting to pass laws about women in sports and other things like that are popular with the American people, that they want to see action taken on these issues. So they're already undertaking that action. They're talking about the first 100 days, and that harkens back to the New Deal with the first 100 days of FDR when he did so much. He didn't solve the Great Depression. Mind you, he did not solve the Great Depression, but he did give the American people hope, and that was very important. Remember his famous inaugural address in 1933 when he said the classic line, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." That was very reassuring to the American people who feared tomorrow, who feared what was coming the next day. And for their president to say, you don't have to fear tomorrow, you don't have to fear the future, that meant a lot to the American people.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
This episode is brought to you by Cadillac. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the Cadillac Certified Service Fresh Start Tire event. Visit Cadillac.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only. Highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
You know, you talked about that message of hope, Craig Shirley. Do you think Trump also emits that same, and do you think we'll see some lines that we go, oh, wow, that was like a memorable line like that?
I hope you see a memorable line. He exudes hope. He exudes hope, and I think the American people are already rallying to that hope that he's exuding. But he has to, because the American people, after 4 years of being battered into submission, being battered into the ground, being torn asunder by the awful Biden administration, with crime and the border and inflation. The American people just got hit with everything you can imagine, even war. Not directly war, but supporting war in Ukraine and in the Middle East, and a hostage crisis. The American people's psyche has been battered into the ground after 4 years. So Donald Trump represents a ray of light to the American people, and he needs to take political advantage of that and be that beacon of hope that the American people want. And he has to move very quickly on his political agenda. Yeah, and he also, as you know, they have the Senate, they have the House, but who knows what happens in 2 years? They may not have the Senate or the House, that's exactly that, which is why they can move fast. But by moving fast, they help ensure they will keep the House and the Senate in 2 years. If they do nothing, is the worst they can do. The worst thing they can do is to just do nothing, which Republican Congresses in the past have done nothing. Like Paul Ryan's, he had a Republican Congress, and he did nothing. He was a failed speaker in every sense of the word. He was a total failure because he didn't do anything. American people don't they know they don't send the representatives to Washington to sit on their hands. They send the Washington representatives to Washington to make their lives better. And that's why I always knew Trump was going to win, because he was talking, Kamala was an elitist who didn't, connect with the American people, whereas Donald Trump, for many years has talked to the American people and talked in a common sense fashion that they agreed with and they understood and that they supported.
And he's really reconfigured the Republican Party in so many ways. Craig, you wrote a book, obviously, about Trump, but you also wrote a book about Reagan. Where are the similarities and dissimilarities?
The dissimilarities are personality. They're both their own men. All men or all women are their own people, right? But the similarities are their politics. Look, the Republican Party has wavered on many issues. The Democratic Party has been fairly consistent since 1932. It's been the party of big government. The Republican Party has wavered over that time, for trade, against trade, for war, against war, for tax increases, for tax cuts. 1972, when the economy was slowing, is Senator Ted Kennedy, Democrat of Massachusetts, Senator Walter Mondale, Democrat of Minnesota, said the way to stimulate the economy was with massive personal income tax cuts across the board. And the Nixon administration said, no, the way we're going to stimulate the economy was with massive federal spending. I mean, the two parties have completely switched 180 degrees on those issues. So the Republican Party has been many things to many people, but in 1980, Ronald Reagan brought a core set of issues, all evolving around the concept of freedom. Less government, more freedom. But everything was about freedom. It was anti-communism. It was tax cuts. It was pro-life. Everything emanated around freedom, and that has been those core issues. Just deviated a little bit, like with Bush's foolish Iraq war and things like that. But it hasn't really deviated that much from 1980 until 2024. Donald Trump articulated many, if not most, of those issues that Ronald Reagan brought to the Republican Party beginning in 1980.
And sort of the same folksy style.
Yes.
There you go again. You can almost see, Trump using that line in a debate.
Yeah, but they're both, they understand, Shakespeare was right. The play's the thing. All the world is a stage. The great leaders of culture, of society, of history have been players upon a stage, whether it's Julius Caesar or Jesus Christ, or bad people like Adolf Hitler, or good people like, look, Abraham Lincoln knew the whole log cut, the whole rail splitter image was just that. It was just an image. And his folksy style was just an image, but it worked for him. George Washington never went out before his men without his uniform brushed and clean, and his horse and saddle, his leather all brushed and polished. And Robert E. Lee, all presidents understand, good presidents understand that part of leadership is part of presentation. And Ronald Reagan acutely understood that, as did Donald Trump, as does Donald Trump.
You talked about Donald Trump. I'm thinking about, he always wears a tie because he said, I wants to show respect to the Oval Office. And that is a contrast from, you think about, especially, I think about not necessarily Joe Biden, but I think about Obama. He used to sit there, after a basketball game, and he'd come into the Oval Office.
Yeah, and put his feet up on the furniture.
Yeah. What did you make of those two different styles?
Well, first of all, I think it's disrespectful.
I do too. I agree with you, Craig.
Up on the furniture.
Yep.
Now, Reagan, it's a myth to say that Reagan never went into the Oval Office without a tie, because on Saturdays he would go in and he have a flannel shirt on, and he'd record his weekly broadcast, and then he and Mrs. Reagan would go to Camp David for the weekend. But Reagan treated it with nothing but the utmost of respect. The whole White House, the whole concept, nothing but dignity and respect. Other presidents did likewise. John Kennedy or Dwight Eisenhower. They treated the White House with respect because they knew it was a symbol of something important to the American people. Then you have people like Barack Obama, who acts like he's in a frat house, putting his feet up on furniture and and basically not acting respectful and that kind of goes to the difference between liberals and conservatives. Conservatives are for change, but they also want to conserve the best of the past, whereas liberals want to tear down the past. And part of the tearing down is disrespect, and part of disrespect is putting your feet up on furniture.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting analogy. We talked about Obama. Michelle Obama is not attending the inauguration. She wasn't at Carter's funeral. What do you make of that? Is it sour grapes?
I would guess it. It's ideology. It's sour grapes. It's again, presidents and first ladies have a job, even when they leave office. They still have a job to act out in their role as former president, as former first lady. And you notice at the Carter funeral, everybody was there, not just the former presidents or the former first ladies, but the former vice presidents. Dan Quayle was there. Marilyn Quayle was there. Al Gore was there. Now, Tipper Gore, she and Al got divorced, so Tipper Gore was not there. But Mike Pence and his wife were there because they have a responsibility that goes with a lifetime responsibility that goes with that job. And she's disrespecting her position, and to say that she has a scheduling conflict just doesn't hold water. It just doesn't wash. It is. I think it's very, very disrespectful on her part.
Jif peanut butter. It's that Jiffing good. It doesn't really need advertising. So instead, enjoy the calming sounds of the ocean. Jif. It's that Jiffing good. Get your Jif at Jif.com.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
Hosting season's here. Are your windows guest ready? Early access to Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega sale is on now. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega sale early access now. Save up to 40% site-wide, plus a free measure. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Yeah, it seems like, sort of a bitterness, and it comes as we're hearing also reports that Kamala Harris, the vice president, still has not invited J.D. Vance and his family with his kids to the Naval Observatory for sort of a brief little tour.
Obama not going to the funeral or the inaugural, and Kamala behaving that way toward J.D. Vance. The American people know, and all it does is help Republicans and hurt Democrats when they see Democrats acting in such a peevish and childish manner. Is that all it does is drive people away from the Democratic Party because they don't like it and they become embarrassed by it.
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody feels that way. Now, you followed a lot of inaugurations. What are some of the more interesting moments that have happened during inaugurations? Are there ones that are notable? You brought up the FDR speech, but
I have to say Reagan's 1985 inaugural was important because I worked on it. I worked on that inauguration, and it happened to be one of the coldest inaugurations in history.
How cold was it?
It was like 10 degrees.
Oh my gosh!
But they had to cancel the parade. The instruments were sticking to players' lips and hurting their lips because the brass was so cold. So they ended up canceling and I was part of my job. Part of my job with the inauguration was I was in charge of 50 state governors, including the territories. So it's actually 54 who were going to be in the parade. Right, they were going to ride in the motorcade, ride in cars as part of the parade. And so they canceled the parade and they canceled all the outdoor activities that day, because it was so darn cold. So now I'm stuck with 53 state, senators that I don't know what to do with them. So I set up a couple bars at the Hall of States building, and I sent them all over there. And for the afternoon, they just all, got drunk. But they didn't have anything to do, and I didn't know what to do with them. So I figured that was the best thing. All the museums were closed, so I couldn't send them to the portrait gallery or anything else like that. And I couldn't, there wasn't anything to do. So I just came up with that at the last second, and nobody complained. So I guess it worked out all right.
I was going to say, when in doubt, send them to the bar, right, Craig, Shirley?
Yeah, exactly. Like at a wedding, right? It said things don't go well, send them to the bar. Right,
exactly.
Or a funeral. Things don't go well at a funeral. Send them to the bar. Just drink away the sorrows or their pride or whatever else. But I would say that as far as inaugurations go, obviously Washington's first one, where he warned that government, like fire, was a wonderful servant and a terrible master. 1861, where Lincoln implored the South not to secede. We are friends, he said. He implored the South not to secede. But then 1865, after the Civil War, he said, his inaugural, he said, let us bind up the nation's wounds. Let us care for the mother and let's care for the orphan. He called for, when it came to, he was very much, I don't know if he actually said he was opposed to Reconstruction, but I remember when he said, he's quoted as saying, after defeating the South in the Civil War, he was quoted as saying, let them up easy. He wanted reconciliation to go down as easily as possible. Reconstruction was about revenge for Lincoln's assassination as much as anything. But then 1932 with FDR and his, we have to fear is fear itself. 1960 with Kennedy's magnificent inaugural speech. I've listened to it many, many times. It drives Reagan crazy because I listen to it so often. But I can memorize it. But it is a restatement of our fight for freedom and our fight against communism and a fight for. Kennedy was a conservative. Let's face it. He used the word freedom many, many times in his inaugural address. He was once described as a enlightened cold warrior. He was anti-communist as they come. He was going to commit us to Vietnam and make sure that the communists didn't take over Vietnam. He committed American the first president to commit ground troops to Vietnam. And then Reagan in 1980, where he went back to the framers and had to restate again what the role of American government and the role of the American people. And is that he said the American government does not exist the American people do not exist to serve the American government. It is the other way around. The government exists to serve the American people, and that's the fundamental truth we're going to put into effect starting today. And he did. He totally flipped the debate. Because from 1932 up until 1980, the answer had always been government. From 1980 after the answer had been the American people, and that's all due to Ronald Reagan. So I would say one thing, not that I'm giving Donald Trump any advice, President-elect Trump, but the two most important things to talk about in any inaugural address are the future and young Americans. Is that those two issues, those two things to talk about are gold in any inaugural speech.
No, that's a great point, because you're right. People want to look forward. They want a better future for them and their children. This has been such a fascinating discussion from one of the best in the business. Everybody be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. And Craig, Shirley, thank you very much for, we have big smiles on our faces thinking about all these incredible historic moments. And we will see another one on January 20th.
My pleasure, Rita. Thank you for inviting me.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.